behavioral. There we are. We were just talking about our assignment that's going to be due in a few weeks, which is all about behavioral interviewing questions.
Yeah.
So it's going to be some practice for them.
Okay.
Do you mind just giving us a quick introduction, though, telling us a bit about yourself and
Of, yeah, of course. My name is Pino Odessa. I'm the founder of a company called the Staffing Alternative. We specialize in the temporary and permanent and executive placement of HR professionals.
HR peeps? So he's the right person to know if your next step is an HR job. All right. Wonderful. And how long have you been doing recruiting? A little
Uh,
while. I don't
yeah,
want
I've
to call
been
you out, Pino, but you've got experience.
yeah, well, I've been recruiting for 20 years now. So
And
I've
is
been sorry?
I was going to say, I know that you've been doing agency for a long time, but have you also
Yes.
done corporate?
I did. So I started off actually in corporate. I actually started off in corporate recruitment, and then my career journey took me to the agency world in 2007, April 2007, and I've just been in that space since then. My niche is HR for all over that. I guess it's 20 years now. About uh, focusing on HR professionals, temporary, permanent, and executive placement throughout the GTA, and we do some work in the U.S. as well too.
Very cool. Actually,
Yeah,
Pino helped me find one of my jobs. I think it
I
was my
did.
second job at Symbility, right?
I did years ago on
Yeah,
King Street. On King Street, right?
that's right. I was right
Yeah.
above the Elephant and Castle. Let me tell
Yes,
you, having an office right above a pub is very interesting.
and tempting.
It makes
And
the
te
lunches interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. So awesome. So yeah, we guess we just wanted to get started. What we were hoping to hear from you today are things like when you are interviewing someone,
Yeah.
what are some of the like green flags that you
Yeah.
see that you're like, oh, this person is going to be a really great candidate? And
Okay.
then adversely, the red flags. But maybe we'll start with
Sure.
the green flags. Like, what are some things that you're like, oh, I love when a candidate does this?
Okay. Well, first of all, at what level? At an entry level, or it doesn't matter? Just what are some things I look for?
I mean, we could do both.
Okay. Let's say in general terms, what gets me excited about candidates is one, communication skills. If the person can clearly communicate is going to be really important to me. Do they have a passion for what they do? Are they excited about whatever it is that they're doing? So I look for examples, and you can hear it in their voice, right? Like you can hear someone's excitement in their voice. So communication skills. Are they passionate about what they do? Do they like what they do? Are they just doing it just make so understanding? Are they in the right path? Or are they driving in the right lane? Um, what else do I like? I like I generally like people seeing. I don't like job hoppers. So typically, when I see someone going from job to job to job to job every 3 4 months, that's a red flag. So that's the negative. What I do like is when I see people that have longevity in roles and have started off, let's say, as an assistant, coordinator, generalist, and then a manager. So slowly work their way up, but having longevity on those roles, right,
So,
is another thing that I look for and I like.
so what would you consider to be like a short tenure in today's world? Because we know it's not as long as it
Yeah,
used to be.
so on average people are moving every every 2 to 3 years, right? Is the average window of when people move on. But if I'm seeing every 2 3 months, typically it's not a good sign. Now, there are some cases where there's contract opportunities where they're just working on a contract assignment. And that's fine as well too. But if you look at the length of the resume and if you constantly see movement, it's typically not a good sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, what other green flags do you have? Like, um, so you've talked about, so you said passion, they're
Yeah.
on the right
Obviously,
career path.
the experience as well too, right? So, obviously the experience, if that's going to be obviously important as well too. So if they've got great experience, that's going to play a big part in it as well too.
Mhm.
So having the experience working for some big brands, working from some large organizations often help tell your story and help, create some excitement about your profile and your experience. So that's another thing I want to mention.
Nice, the
Yeah.
experience. For entry level candidates, like let's say hypothetically, if a person were a new grad,
Yeah.
And they don't have a ton of experience.
Yeah.
Um, and they're going for like an HR coordinator or an HR
Yeah.
assistant, things like that. What would you look for? Like, what would be some green flags if they don't have experience?
So that's the trickiest part. Like coming out of school with no experience is oftentimes the hardest job to get. And I get countless students reaching out to me and asking me, you know what, I'm just graduated, I can't find a job. And my answer is this: it's going to be your ability. You don't have an experience, so someone has to give you a chance. So I always say your network is your net worth. So I always encourage people, especially students. Oh, I encourage everyone to network. I think you should just continually doing it throughout your career, but especially at the entry level, at the student level, you should be constantly networking and meeting people. I believe in planting seeds. I believe our careers are like gardens, and you're constantly planting these seeds, right? So if you're a student, I would be networking with other hiring managers on LinkedIn, get out to HRP events, any events where HR professionals were going to be, do your best to get out there, meet people, shake people's hands, exchange business cards if people are still exchanging business cards. I don't even know if they're still doing that.
there's
But
there's QR codes on
the,
LinkedIn now.
there
Did you
you
know
go.
that?
There you go. So the,
I
the
can I
QR.
can show you how to use that later, like a QR code on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So I would say to students, don't wait, like be proactive, don't be reactive. Start planting seeds now. Start finding out who hiring managers are. Maybe make a list of maybe 10 or 15 companies you'd like to work for. Find out who those hiring managers are and build relationships with them and engage with them on LinkedIn and just say, listen, I'm a student. I'm graduating, I don't know, in May this year. Uh, can I talk to you about potential opportunities in HR? But or just say engage in a conversation, ask them what got them into HR, what they like about HR, because I believe you should just call someone and say, hey, I'm looking for a job, can you give me a job? It doesn't work that way, right? So what you want to do is you want to build trust, you want to start building trust with people, and you want to gain credibility with people. So it's not about calling someone, networking with someone, and just say, hey, my name is so and so, I'm looking for a job, are you hiring? Because I just graduated, I need a job. Oftentimes it's not a good approach. So have conversation with people, let people know who you are, and ask them, make it all about them. It's not about you right now. Make it about them. Why did you get into HR? What are some things about HR that you like? Any advice for me as a student coming out of school? Build that trust, gain their trust, and then go from there. And then if they don't give you a job now, say, maybe you could put me in contact with someone. Just let you know I am looking right now. Can we stay connected? Because it's all about maybe not now, but down the road. Again, it's planting those seeds, right? We plant the seeds in the spring and we harvest in the fall, right? So it's what we do now, and then we reap the rewards down the road.
Yeah, sage advice. I'm always like networking, networking. It's so
I,
important. And I
I
would say
think,
that even goes for like in your senior levels of your
yeah,
career as
yeah.
well, right? Like that's not just for entry level.
No, yeah, Rosanna, like I think that at any level, regardless of where you are in your career, whether you're at the entry level, mid level, executive level, I think one should always be networking and building those relationships. Because again, organizations are always downsizing, restructuring. Look what's happening right now with the Bay right now. So when these hard times come, you want to know, okay, who can I lean towards? Is there anyone in my network that can help me bridge that gap and help me get to my next opportunity? Right. So again, it's building those relationships at all levels, and I don't think schools at the school level talks about it enough because I think it should be needs to be addressed at the school level. In my opinion, that's a different topic for a different day. But network is
Mhm.
going to be critical in all aspects of our life. Not even looking for a job. In all aspects of our life, it'll come in handy,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
Would you say this is like off topic, but not so off topic?
Yep.
Um, that Okay, I guess first question is when you are looking for a person on behalf of a client,
Yep.
do you post the jobs or are you like searching for these people, maybe
Yeah.
passive candidates?
I'm glad you asked that. So the answer is yes and no.
Okay.
So because recruiters, executive recruiters, they are part of their DNA is they're constantly networking with people. So if a client calls me right now and says, Pino, we're looking for an HR business partner, me as a natural networker, I already have an established network of people that I can turn to. Hey, Rosanna, spoke to you last week. We just got this great role we're working on. What are your thoughts? Do you want to take a look at it? So the good recruiters oftentimes don't even need to advertise for roles because they have an established network. However, there are times where I do need to place a job ad, and and that's going to be like an extra tool in my toolkit to help me find candidates.
Mm,
Um, so I guess it would depend on the role I'm looking for. So the answer is yes and no. I do both actually.
yeah. I'm curious because what I've been hearing and what I've been seeing on like LinkedIn and stuff within my contacts, that when a job is posted, the volume
Yeah.
of applicants, are you
Yes.
seeing that personally? Like, how
Yes.
many
Now,
applicants are you getting?
so now, Roseanne, more now than ever.
Yeah.
Like, and this is why I don't place job ads because we're getting 3, 4, 500 resumes per job posting. And I can tell you, most of the candidates that are applying are not even qualified for the job.
Uh,
So they're not even qualified. So they're just what they're doing is they use a technique where it's called spray and pray,
Spray
where
and pray.
they sit at their desk and they spray the resume to all these open jobs, hoping and praying that someone somewhere sees it and calls them in for an interview and offers them a job. But they're applying for jobs that they're not qualified for. And then they sit and they wonder, I'm looking for a job, no one's calling me. Well, part of it is because you're applying for jobs that you're not even qualified for. So that's the
Yeah.
first part of it. The second part of it is that because companies are getting flooded with so many resumes right now, they cannot open up the volume of resumes. They can't get to the volume of resumes. They just can't. So as a result, you may be the candidate that they're looking for. They may have overlooked it, and then they say, your resume may get passed because someone failed to look at it. The
Hmm.
other part of it is that well, they have ATSs, they have applicant tracking systems, and most companies, most large organizations have applicant tracking systems, and they can look for candidates that have applied for keywords. Yes, there are organizations do that. However, there are a lot of organizations still today in 2025 that don't have an ATS, that are operating their HR department without an HRIS system and an ATS. They're not at that level just yet. So you are applying to someone's inbox, right? So your resume is not going into an ATS, it's going into someone's inbox. Now, the person not looking at the resume, maybe they don't open it. If you are assuming you're qualified, doesn't even open the resume. So, despite all that, I always encourage candidates, your network is your net worth. If someone knows you in that company that could put a good word in for you, that'll beat the ATS. That'll overlook someone not looking at your resume. So again, I go back to networking is going to be critical when you are looking for work.
Yeah, gone are the days when we had, do you remember we had like stacks of applicants
Mhm.
like on paper and we would
Mhm.
like scroll through them and be like, oh, this one has a nice paper, like a
Yeah,
nice texture, going to Staples and buying
yeah,
like paper resumes. I
yeah,
actually have a curiosity of like whether or not we might go back to that based on everything that's going on right now. But
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Rosanna, I've been doing this so long that I remember when candidates would fax their resume. Like this is how long
Yes.
I'm a dinosaur, but they once faxed their resume,
Yeah.
right? And I would wait by the
We're
fax.
not dinosaurs. We're not dinosaurs, Pino. We just
No,
technology is so fast.
yes. There you go. There you go. There you
Yeah. So,
go.
okay, coming
Yeah.
back to like red flags, green flags, what are some
Oh,
red flags?
yes. A red flag. And it's funny. I'm so glad you asked me this. I was talking to a colleague on last week. A couple things. If you talk negatively about a former employer, big red flag. So talking negatively about a past experience or a past employer is a really big flag. It speaks of your character, and it speaks if this person's speaking bad about his former employer, he may speak bad about me eventually, and people typically don't want to hear that. So if you had a negative experience at a former employer, don't ever bring it up. There's no value in that. It just carries no value. So one, speaking negatively about a former employer or a former colleague, nothing to gain there.
Hmm.
In addition to that, I think candidates oftentimes, because they get nervous or they get excited, they give long-winded answers. And I and or hiring managers aren't looking for that. If you give a 10-minute answer to a 1-minute question, then it oftentimes is not good. So be mindful of the length of your answer and what you're saying. So those are two things for me that stand out.
So I guess preparation would be the key for that, right?
Yeah.
Last week we experimented. I created a custom chat GPT
Yeah,
that is a interviewer. So we grabbed a job from the internet, pasted it into the GPT, and
yeah.
then the GPT like interviewed us. And it was interesting,
Wow.
some interesting observations based on that.
Yeah,
And like it takes so long to formulate an answer and
yeah,
put things together. But the
yeah,
practice is the key, right? To
yeah,
like, yeah. Can you tell? This is a question. Can you tell when somebody has like really practiced their answers? Is it
yeah,
obvious?
yeah. You can tell.
And is that a good thing, or do you think like, oh, they're reciting a script, or what do
Yeah,
you
I mean,
is that?
I see it as two things. One, they're prepared, which is great. Then
Yeah.
the second thing is you don't want to be a robot. You want it to come off as natural as possible. You want to be authentic and real. If you're reading, if it's everything is like a script, then it's just like, it sounds, oftentimes the saying, if something sounds too good to be true, oftentimes it is,
Mm,
right? So if it can't be, your answers cannot be sound like a script. It's got to sound natural, authentic, genuine, real,
yes,
right?
that makes total sense. I remember like doing phone screens
Yeah,
because we probably don't do you do phone screens anymore,
of
like
course. Yeah, yeah.
pre-screens, or
Phone screen people all the
do
time.
you
Yeah,
use but do you use video or the phone?
both.
Oh,
Zoom or phone. Mostly phone.
okay. Because I remember like doing phone screens and hearing people, it sounded like they were actually reading
Yeah,
from from a piece of paper, which
yeah,
on the one hand, I was like, that's great that you're prepared, like bonus
yeah,
points for that, but also
yeah.
like the authenticity to your point of it, right? You want to feel like you're talking to a person who's confident in their experience and
Yes.
telling when you're telling the truth about an experience that you've had, you typically
Yeah.
don't have to recite it, but you
Yeah.
do have to prepare to keep it succinct,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
Yep.
to get the
Yep.
main points.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting red flags. Um,
CHRP. Let's talk about CHRP.
okay, tell me about a CHRP. So should they get it? What do you think?
Okay. So there's so a lot of people often ask me, I'm in HR, should I get the CHRP designation? Pino, do you think it's going to help me land the job? I learned early on in my life that there are no guarantees in life. Death and taxes, they're the only thing that are guaranteed to happen in our life, right?
Yeah,
Um, so is someone putting up their hand, or did I see someone putting up their hand? Okay.
might
So
have just been me.
so should you get it? So here's what I think. I think yes. I think you should work towards getting it. I'm pro CHRP designation, but keep in mind this. Just because you have a CHRP designation or just because you have a degree or diploma, there is no guarantees to any of this. They will increase your odds of getting the job, but at the end of the day, if you can't communicate effectively, if you're not the right cultural fit, if you don't have the right skills and experience, the knowledge, all that gets wasted. So it gets pushed to the side. Does it help you tell your story? Yes. Does it show a commitment to one's career in a field? Yes. In this case, HR, yes, it does. But again, if you can't clearly communicate that you can do the job or you have the wrong attitude and you don't fit in culture with the company, then it doesn't pay a dividend.
It's not going to be the thing that gets you there if everything
No,
else isn't in place.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of goes to what you were saying about in the early career, like, are you committed to this career?
Yeah.
Is this a path that is right for you? And if you're going so far as to write the CHRP designation exams and stuff, I guess that
Yeah.
would show a level of commitment.
I,
And for like, for younger candidates, less experienced candidates, maybe that would be one extra point, but it's not going to make or break, is what you're saying.
It, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be a make or break. Like I don't see how it's going to hurt your chances. I never see someone not have it and say, oh, so it's not going to hurt your chances. It's only going to enhance things. It's going to
Mm.
tell your story and get you better prepared. But at the end of the day, I think Rosanna, when employers are looking, again, and I want to reinforce his experience, skills, communication skills, culture fit, all those things play a key. Those are the things at the end of the day I think employers are looking for.
Yeah. I know we didn't talk about this in our pre chat, but it's not unrelated.
Yeah.
AI use.
Yeah.
So using ChatGPT in a cover letter, using
Yeah.
ChatGPT, or and it doesn't have to be GPT because we don't. They're the common one, but like Gemini, Copilot, all of
Yeah.
those
All those. Yeah.
AI, generative AI, right?
Yeah.
Um, So for cover letters, resumes, things like that,
Yeah.
can you tell? And does it bother you? Or do you like, what's your thoughts on
That's
that
my
as a recruiter?
Okay, so I will show you. I will tell you this, and you can ask 10 recruiters. Recruiters do not read cover letters. I don't know if anyone reads cover letters anymore.
Fair enough.
So I
But
actually did a survey on this a couple years ago when I concluded that 50% of employers are reading cover letters, while 50% of them actually are not reading cover letters. So the next question is, should you in fact actually write? So it's like a coin
yeah,
toss.
yeah.
So if no one's reading them, should you write it? I think you should write it, but that's a different story. That's a different question. But I will say this. No, so if someone writes an AI generated resume, you can pick it out, right? But here's the negative thing about that. When you are questioning about it, if the computer is writing your resume and you're questioning about it and you're not prepared and you can't give an answer, because the recruiter is going to question you on your experience. Okay, tell me, it says when you worked at this company you did this. Okay, let's talk about that. Tell me more. I want you to elaborate on that. You did terminations? Great. Let's talk about that. So the computer wrote it for you, but if you can't back it up, not good. So be careful of that,
Hmm. So
right?
for you, when you if you look at a resume and you see, oh, I can tell this has like the signature of AI. Because like with ChatGPT, for example, one of the signatures that it has is like
Yep.
a double hyphen. For
Yep.
some reason, it puts double hyphens in like everything. You're going to notice it now.
Yes, it does.
Each of them have sort of their own signature, right? So if you can tell that it's AI generated, or at
Yep.
least AI has been used on it, that
Yep.
doesn't necessarily mean it's not true. It just means maybe they used it. But do you, what is that like a sort of a yellow flag for you that you're like, oh, they used AI for this? Or are you like, oh, that's kind of smart, they used something to help them? Like, yeah.
Yeah, listen, I think Rosanna, it's 2025. Everyone's using Chat GPT and they're using all these AI tools. I think it's just become part of our culture now. Everyone's using them and
Yeah.
everyone it needs a leg up because they want to get noticed. So everyone's taking advantage of these tools to get noticed. But uh if it sound at the end of the day, if it sounds so not authentic, then it for me that'll be a red flag, right?
Hmm. Fair
Right.
enough. Fair
So
enough.
yeah.
Um,
Does anyone have any? I'd like to hear from the students because everyone's pretty
yeah.
quiet.
Does anyone have
I'd love to answer some of your questions.
Does anyone have questions? We have a particularly quiet group. Were you going to raise your hand? No, I didn't mean to. I saw your hand move.
Rosanna, anyone on the other side of this class, please have them come up beside you. Yes, there we go.
Yeah, we have a few. It's hard
Does
to show
anyone have any
everybody here.
questions for me?
Yeah. Does anyone have questions? This is a great opportunity.
Rosanna, what class is this? What are you teaching?
This is our recruitment and selection class.
Okay.
Recruitment and selection. And we have a variety of backgrounds, right? How many of you are in the HR program, HR major? One student's in the HR major, which is interesting.
What's his name?
Jalen,
Jalen, not to pick on you. Can you come ask me a question, please?
do you have a question? He doesn't have any questions. And then the rest of the class is in general business, right?
Okay.
Yeah, general business. So for you, like, Pino may not be the person who's hiring you necessarily, right? You may actually be one day his client, right? Being like, oh, I need to hire an HR person, which obviously the first phone call you're going to make when you want to hire an HR person is me, because you're going to be like, I know she does HR. You're going to call me and be like, you're going to hire me, right? Right? They're not nodding their heads. I'm just kidding. They are. But then the next person would be Pino. But yeah, do you have questions? Like, because you're all probably going to be looking in the next, few weeks for jobs, right? So do you have any questions? What questions do you have? We have a very quiet group today.
Wow, no questions. Okay.
Yeah, I do have one more question. I know I want to be conscious of your time and
Yeah.
keep us to around that 30-minute mark.
Yeah.
But do you have any like stories?
I have
Like
I have plenty of stories.
memorable interviews, either for the good or the juicy? Like we like a little tea here, obviously maintaining confidentiality because we know that's
Yeah.
important, but like any good stories of like really amazing interviews or ones that you're like, oh, that surprised me how terribly that went.
Yeah. I'll share a story with you. Let's talk about social media first. It ties into social media.
Okay.
And I'll never forget the story. This would have been back in maybe '09, 2010, so a long time ago. And so I was working with a company in Mississauga. I'll keep that confidential. And the candidate was interviewing for an HR manager role. And I got really excited. I met a great candidate. We submitted to the candidate to the client. The client agreed to meet with them. They had a great meeting. And candidate calls me after the interview, says, things went really well. I says, that's amazing. She goes, but unfortunately, I think I'm going to pass on this opportunity. I said, really? I said, well, why? And she goes, well, you know what? She goes, when I got home, she goes, I actually went onto Facebook and I Googled the VP of HR's name and she came up. I says, oh, she had an open profile. I said, yeah, her profile was open. She could see all of her pictures. And she goes, as a result, I'm going to pass. I said, well, why? What did you see? And she goes, I saw pictures that do not align with my values and my beliefs. Therefore, I'm going to politely pass. I'm going to pass. The VP of HR had an open profile. Okay. Let's just say she went to Vegas for the weekend and maybe
Uh-oh.
she posted something that she shouldn't have, can be perceived as should a VP of HR be posting that, right?
Was it something in the picture or a behavior?
It was both. I would say both.
Oh, interesting.
So there is this belief that organizations are looking at job seekers' profiles, right?
Mhm.
Where we're like, let's say we're interviewing, is it Jalen? What's his name?
Jalen, yeah.
Jalen, let's say I interview you and I'm just more curious about getting to know him more. So I'll look up his Twitter, what he's posting, if he has one on Instagram. I want to find out as much as I can about him before I make a decision. But candidates are doing that as well too. Job seekers are doing that too. So they're Googling the company's names, they're reading Glassdoor, they're reading Google reviews, and they may be going on social media platforms such as Facebook and such. So this candidate went onto Facebook, saw some of her open pictures, and said, her values are not aligned with mine, therefore I'm going to pass. I spoke to the hiring manager and she said, I like her. I want to bring her in for another interview. I said, I'm sorry, let's say Veronica, she's decided to pass. And she said, well, why? She goes, we had a great meeting. I said, you just didn't feel like it was the right fit for her. I didn't want to get into all of that. I didn't want to share those details with her.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think it was important at that point. And it's a hard conversation to have when you tell a hiring manager,
Yeah.
listen, you posted some pictures maybe you shouldn't have posted. So, anyways, so the long story short is she had some pictures that didn't align with a candidate's experience values, and she passed. So, moral of the story is be careful what you post online because someone may see it and
Yeah.
judge you for that. So be very careful what you post and what you say, like your comments, all the stuff. It's in cyber world. It's like on the net. It's on the internet. So
Yeah.
someone will see it and pluck it and maybe judge you on that, and you may not get the job
Yeah.
as a result.
I'm really glad you told us. So at the beginning of the semester, we had a whole dialogue and conversation around should a recruiter check the social media? Like, should we be searching people
Yeah.
on social media? And we
Yep.
talked about it in terms of like discriminatory grounds that you could
Yep.
accidentally uncover, like their
Yep.
background, their faith, like pregnancies, children, whatever those things that are prohibited grounds of discrimination.
Yep.
But if you think about it from the other side, but it brings up a really great example because last week we talked about the perception process of the interview, how we have the perception going into the interview, and then we
Yep.
have that interaction between the two parties, right, the interviewer and the candidate, and then
Yep.
coming out of the interview we have potentially a perception shift.
Yep.
And it's all of those factors that go in. I didn't even put social media on that one, so that's a good little add-in for sure.
Yeah, and hiring managers have biases as well too, right? And then when hiring managers and recruitment managers they look you up on social media, they it creates biases, right? So just be mindful, be very, very mindful of what you post and what you say, because again, it can help you, but can also hurt you as well too. So just be mindful of that.
Great. Does
Yeah.
anyone have questions? Any? No? All right. Pino, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. We'll wrap up, but I look forward to doing this again tomorrow. Let's
Yes,
talk some more
yes. We'll be at a
tomorrow.
different campus. Today we're in the Brampton campus, the Davis campus in
Okay.
Brampton, and tomorrow we'll be at the Hazel McCallion campus in Mississauga.
Okay. And I will say this, if anyone's in HR and you want to connect with me, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Roseanne, if you want to just put up my first and last name, they can find me on LinkedIn. Connect with me. If you have any further questions outside of today's chat, reach out and be happy to answer some more questions for you.
Thank you, Pino. I have given them your LinkedIn,
Okay,
yeah, so that they can
perfect.
get to you if they need to.
Perfect. Awesome.
A pleasure. Thank you again so much.
Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful Monday,
You as
and
well.
we'll talk to you soon.
We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.